could the real Mount Sinai be in Arabia instead of the Sinai Peninsula? Now, full disclosure, I do not know how to pronounce Sinai, 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 Sinai. So I have a horrible problem with pronunciation. Horrible. So anyways, you get the point though. As Latter-day Saints, we have kind of grown up assuming that the mountain where Moses got the Ten Commandments was on the Sinai Peninsula, and they traveled around in that area and then up to Israel after escaping Egypt. But you might be surprised that there's a huge tradition that it might actually be on the Arabian Peninsula. So instead of the Israelites crossing the Red Sea right next to Egypt, they crossed the Red Sea on the other side of the peninsula, on the other side of the Sinai Peninsula. And while I probably still do lean towards the traditional location, I think it's even in our Latter-day Saint scripture books. There's a map, I think I remember that they were traveling around there. While I do lean there, I think this other theory is interesting. If for any other reason, that it's just a huge tradition in this area. So I kind of want to go over some of this, but also I just kind of want to share some of my experience actually going to Saudi Arabia and seeing these sites kind of surrounding Moses. And it's crazy because there's signs on the road that will say things like the altar of sacrifice, the Valley of Moses, the well of Moses. So it's like a real tradition to these people over there. And there's a bit of evidence, intriguing evidence for it. Now, just some of the background here. It's that I went to Saudi Arabia, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago, a while ago. And we were sent there. I was working at Scripture Central. This shirt says Book of Mormon Central. I don't think you can see that. Let's see it. Book of Mormon Central. Book of Mormon Central eventually turned into Scripture Central. And I was a video producer there. And we were sent to Saudi Arabia, not to film a documentary, but to capture images and video of Book of Mormon sites like the Valley of Lemuel and the location of Shazar and the most fertile parts that the Book of Mormon mentions that Lehi, Nephi, and his family likely traveled to. Because the Saudi Arabian government was building all these massive buildings in order to increase tourism to this area. It's really beautiful. We kind of joked that the place is like Moab, but on steroids. Just these huge epic canyons and cliffs and stuff. So they wanted to promote tourism there, largely because the Saudi Arabia's economy is so much dependent on oil. And if oil was to disappear, their society would pretty much collapse. And they are making major bucks from their current oil, minus the Iran war and stuff, but I think they're doing relatively well despite that. However, they're building these kind of elaborate buildings right in these locations. So the one building everyone's familiar with is the Line, this huge skyscraper that's I think 80 miles long or something. And it was literally going right across the proposed location for Shazar in the Book of Mormon. And I'm not going to go into detail about these Book of Mormon sites because I'm going to do a much more in-depth video about this trip later. Sharing some footage that hasn't been shown yet. But this video, I just want to talk about the Old Testament stuff. Anyways, the Line, the skyscraper, that's been canceled, or not canceled, scaled back to a small fraction of what it was going to be. But anyways, this was going through a Book of Mormon site. They were building another one in the Valley of Lemuel, proposed Book of Mormon site. So we were going there to capture all this footage to preserve it before it gets destroyed. And it was an amazing experience, but I was kind of surprised about the Old Testament connection there. So George Potter, he's a Latter-day Saint researcher and scholar who discovered the Valley of Lemuel. And by the way, I did a nice video on Scripture Central about the Valley of Lemuel and all the evidences around that. And so you could go check that out. He discovered this location a long time ago, but he was actually searching for Bible locations. And then he found this Book of Mormon location. George Potter was our guide to these sites. And he's also a big proponent of the Moses and the Israelites wandering through the wilderness happening in this area. Some of the reasons why is because if Nephi traveled through this area, Nephi in the Book of Mormon talks a lot about the Red Sea and Moses, and it just feels more powerful if Nephi is assuming that all those things happened around him. But other clues, I guess, I already talked about crossing the Red Sea. Just kind of from what I've heard, there's more resources of water and vegetation in this area than there is on the Sinai Peninsula. I still don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but and I think there's even a Bible verse where Paul talks about, I'll show it down right here, something about going to Arabia, and so that's a connection. What other connections? A group of people we know lived around here. Maybe it's the Midianites. Don't quote me on that. Try to put a quote here. But because they are in this area, it suggests that maybe Moses came back to this area. But the cool thing is, so the proposed location of the Valley of Lemuel, which is a pretty strong proposal. Again, check out the video I did, but really strong evidence around it. We call it the Valley of Lemuel, but Arabians call it Wadi Taib al-Ism. And around this area, you'll see all these signs for where they think a lot of this biblical stuff happened. And I'm kind of doing this video quickly today for fun because for Come Follow Me this week, we are studying these things. So even if it's not the specific, actual, accurate location, the imagery is still very similar, and it kind of gets you in the environment and atmosphere of this place. So anyways, Wadi Taib al-Ism is this huge, epic canyon, and they don't necessarily think Lehi camped in the canyon. Likely he camped as you get out of this canyon to the valley. And this valley, there's a Christian group that actually thinks it's the Valley of Elam. And they've got an awesome channel with lots of drone footage. It's funny that they are filming and preserving this area just like we are filming and preserving the Valley of Lemuel. And I've talked to these guys and they've been nice, and I've shared what I was doing and they actually shared their footage with me. So when I put my Valley of Lemuel video together, all the drone shots are from them. So they think this is the Valley of Elam, which has the wells. Now, I'm going off the top of my head. I don't exactly remember how many there are. There'll probably be a lot of corrections on the screen. 7 wells or 12 wells or something like that. And they have that exact amount of wells in this area. And I remember kind of peeking over one and it looks really deep. What I think is neat about that is in the Book of Mormon, in Lehi's dream, it talks a lot about the fountain coming out of the, kind of in Lehi's dream, this fountain or water source just kind of comes out of nowhere like a spring, springs out of the ground and rocks, and that's kind of what happens here. Anyways, this is where some Christians think, not a lot, but some, that the Israelites would camp out. And there are tons of burials scattered throughout here. And we even saw human bones in some. These circular burials scattered everywhere. And funny story, we were traveling out in the middle of Saudi Arabia, and then kind of out of nowhere, we see a car parked in front of us in the dirt road, stalled. We're like, why are they just standing there? No one goes on this dirt road. We're out in the middle of nowhere, this truck. And then all of a sudden, out of the truck pops the Stick of Joseph people and the Ward Radio people. And I don't know what happened. I think the driver was hesitant to go where they wanted to. So randomly, we met them, and George talked to the driver, and I think he's tried to give the driver some confidence to follow him. He'll get him to the Valley of Lemuel. And they did. And I bring that up because I was around one of these burials when someone from that group also saw that burial. So they were there filming too, I guess. And we'll see how that video turns out. It's been a while, but hopefully it's really good. So that is kind of like the area where the Israelites may have camped out at one point. To the south, kind of closer to the sea, the Gulf of, I think it's Aqaba, something like that. There's this place, I think it's called like the Wells of Moses or the Spring of Moses. It's really cool. It's really awesome. It's just this little oasis out in the middle of nowhere. Looks like clean water with, I think, fish swimming through it. Just really random. And you could kind of see why, even if you could kind of see if this wasn't the actual sites of Moses, why these people would consider these sites still sacred, because they're pretty and beautiful. So you got that site, you got the Valley of Moses, you got the wells and the camps. And then on one of the days, we finished all our filming at the Valley of Lemuel, and George took us a bit further to the east, not too far at all, maybe like 30 minutes, and brought us to the mouth of to the base of a giant mountain, rocky mountain, and told us how this is the proposed Mount Sinai, where I guess Moses went up and received the 10 Commandments, and all the children of Israel were camped below. Again, more burials. Nearby, we found some ancient tombs. We also ran into, so at the base of this mountain, we hiked up to it. Bees everywhere. By the way, I'm like deadly allergic to bees. And these bees were huge. They were like that big. And there's some footage I got where this bee like flew right by me and I didn't even know it. Anyways, hiking to this spot at the base of this mountain, and there's some ruins at the base. And George connects these ruins to some type of temple or altar mentioned in the Bible. Again, I'm just blurting this stuff out. You go read George Potter's stuff and get the details. This round cylinder pillar, this is not too big, but it was this really pretty kind of white granite rock out in the middle of nowhere. Anyways, we went to that spot, and then kind of randomly 2 Arabic men were also visiting this site, and they spoke to us and asked us why we were here, and they were actually working on this Saudi Arabian government project, and they had to keep secretive. And one of them kept leaking little details about the sites now and then, and the other guy was like, "Shh, guy, dude, don't say those things, right?" Because I think they're under contract to not share anything. He didn't share anything too crazy. I don't even remember what it was, so no big deal about that. But I wonder what happened to those guys. Anyways, they asked why we were there, and George told them the whole story of Nephi and also the Bible stuff. And they liked it. They enjoyed it. And I guess I've heard other people say this. I experienced this myself, but I guess people in Arabia are open to prophets like this, like Lehi. Now, when it comes to Jesus, maybe not, but even they revere Jesus too. And so they were open to the story of Lehi and stuff, which was kind of neat. So anyways, I think at the top of this mountain, it's either this one or another one. I think it's this one. It's all black. And some people say that it's black because the pillar of fire melted the rocks on the top. Either way, it's a cool geological feature. I was with a friend, coworker, Jonathan Farrell, who's done a video about this spot. And I'll link that somewhere in the description, I guess. It's really cool. So he wanted to hike up. Jonathan's an adventurous guy, and I'm not. I don't want to hike up a huge mountain. But anyways, there was a cave, like way up high, and he wanted to go to that cave. And it turns out the tradition is that cave on near this mountain, Mount Sinai, is traditionally, I guess, known as Elijah's cave. So Jonathan hiked up to it and got some cool footage. So Mount Sinai, Elijah's cave, more burials around this area. There was another cool spot not too far from here, which was this huge boulder with a ton of petroglyphs all over it. It was really pretty. And actually that's kind of normal in Saudi Arabia, because we went to some other places, especially further south, and I don't remember what the name was. Alula, something like that. Tons of petroglyphs everywhere. It's crazy. It's like, I think I said this earlier in the video, it's Utah, Moab on steroids. In fact, I've kind of wondered, like, if Native Americans weren't colonized, would we be more similar to Arabians? Because they seem to have kept their traditions and culture alive. Anyways, this rock had a ton of petroglyphs, and there's some petroglyphs on it with like sheep and stuff that George Potter suggested were related to the altar of sacrifice or the golden calf. And this whole thing was fenced off, and that's kind of a unique thing over there. Is a lot of these ancient sites are all fenced off. There's a fence around them, and it says it's a protected area and to be careful, which is kind of cool. So that's another biblical site, all about the Moses exodus through the wilderness. Just a few extra ones just for fun. I don't remember where this was. Oh yeah, okay. Well, let's go back to like I think it's the Midianites. I can't remember exactly. The Midianites lived in this area, and I think in the Bible it says that after Moses had killed someone in Egypt, he fled to the land of Midian. And there's a group here called the Midianites. Now, if I'm getting this wrong, forgive me. The idea is right. I'm going to flash the correct terms here on screen. And they have these caves here. And that's where I saw this huge bee. I didn't see it actually. I looked back at the footage and the bee was coming right at me, dude. I could have died. Anyways, there's also a well. A super steep well. And I don't remember what that is called, but we'll flash it on the screen here. Daniel Smith was with us. He is in charge of the YouTube channel Messages of Christ. So Daniel was like a giddy little schoolgirl, all excited about all these biblical sites because that's what his channel's all about. And he did some shorts and stuff there. And that area was kind of fenced off, really neat. I mean, fenced off, you could still walk in and visit it. And then the last site, a lot further south, Alula, I think it was what it was called. It has some of the most epic, most popular sites there from a culture. I can't really recall what they're called right now, but there's some really cool ruins that you can walk through, but those are more modern. And then there's another section of the city with the more ancient ruins. And this was a biblical city mentioned in the Bible. And we visited this because after Lehi left the Valley of Lemuel, he went down to the valley of, or to the location of Shazar. And then it says they traveled in the most fertile spots. And so George took us to the most fertile spots, which is important because this whole place is a desert, and you learn and realize how important water is, how sacred, and also how protected and contested it could be. So if Lehi was traveling through the wilderness, he would have had to negotiate for some of these water privileges, even gone into some of these big towns, big villages that we visited. So that's why he took us here. So anyways, I think that's all the biblical sites. It's really cool. It just show like I probably lean more towards the Sinai Peninsula being the location, but I'm not 100%, and I don't think we should be 100% in a lot of these theories. I think we could be 80% or 90%. Like I'm 95% that the Book of Mormon happened in Mesoamerica, but I'm open to it not. I think the evidences pile up for it, but I'm not going to definitively say. And anyone who definitively says things like that should watch out for. So as far as this second proposed location for Moses and the Israelites, I'm almost 50-50, maybe 60-40, 60 for the Sinai Peninsula and 40 for Arabia now, just because I was been there and was able to see it. One last final thought. A funny thought, I think. I don't know how accurate this is, but when we went, George took us to a really out of nowhere place, out in the middle of nowhere place with tons of petroglyphs everywhere. And Jonathan found some petroglyphs. Actually, I think George pointed some out and mentioned how it says the name Lehi on it. And Jonathan Farrell went and looked up the meaning of that petroglyph, and it basically said that Lehi farted, which is funny. Also, George thinks there's a Lehi tribe based from Lehi in that area. Like, I don't know how accurate that is, but still interesting. Fun stuff to be aware of. But anyways, that's my story of this other proposed location. There's better sources to look this up. I don't mind either way, but you could check out the guys who gave me that drone footage. They're all into this type of stuff. If you just want to learn about it. And I think the most important thing is just seeing this tradition among these people in Arabia. I thought they were all nice and stuff. So it's like coming to Utah and seeing Fremont rock art and what it means to us or to Native Americans, right? It's kind of these precursor people. So I think it's just good culture-wise. So anyways, check that stuff out. Thanks for watching. On this channel, I'll do kind of fun little vlog stuff like this, and then in my office at home, do some more in-depth stuff and just try to share good research, interesting ideas, fun experiences about the Book of Mormon, about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and about Utah Native American history, and just get this stuff out there. So subscribe if you haven't, share if this might interest some of your friends. Thanks for watching. Bye.